The Heroes of 9/11 by Barbara Pfeiffer. Terrorist attacks. September 11, 2001 began as a clear autumn morning in the northeastern United States. Then, an airplane crashed into one of the World Trade Center's twin towers in New York City. At first, it seemed to be an accident, but 18 minutes later, another plane crashed into the second tower. 37 minutes after that, a third passenger plane crashed into the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. Passengers on a fourth plane, Flight 93, fought back against the terrorists, and their plane crashed in a field. Terrorists had hijacked or took over by force the planes. Those men were angry at the United States. They flew 3 planes into those buildings on purpose. Many people became heroes that day. This book is about a few of them. The World Trade Center. 7 buildings made up the World Trade Center. The buildings stood in New York City on Manhattan Island. Businesses rented space in 6 of those buildings. The 7th building was a hotel. When the attacks happened, at least 40,000 people were in the buildings. The 2 most famous buildings were known by several names. They were called the Twin Towers, North Tower and South Tower, or WTC-1 and WTC-2. They were 110 stories high, among the world's 6 tallest buildings. Each tower had 97 elevators for people and 6 elevators for freight. Named for its shape. Pentagon is the name for a 5-sided figure. The United States Department of Defense has its home in a building built in that shape. It is simply called the Pentagon. The Pentagon is across the Potomac River from Washington, D.C. The Pentagon is 5 stories tall and covers 29 acres. The total length of its halls is 17.5 miles. This is the headquarters, or main office, of all the branches of the United States military. About 26,000 employees work in the Pentagon. 4 airplanes. Around 8 o'clock on the morning of September 11, 2001, 4 airplanes took off with terrorists on board. The terrorists hijacked one plane and crashed it into the World Trade Center's North Tower. Shortly after, the same thing happened with another plane that hit the South Tower. A third plane left Washington, D.C. Terrorists hijacked the plane and turned it back toward Washington, D.C. They crashed it into the Pentagon. The fourth plane was Flight 93. A few people on board heard about the first 3 crashes on their cell phones. When terrorists took over their plane, some of the passengers fought back. The plane, which was also headed for Washington, D.C., crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Helping each other. Michael Benefonte and John Cerqueira worked in the World Trade Center. Their office was on the 81st floor of the North Tower. It was about 4 floors below where Flight 11 hit. Going down the stairs, the men had a hard time breathing and seeing. The airplane's fuel was burning and filling the building with thick black smoke. On the 68th floor, they met a woman in a wheelchair. Using a special rescue chair, the men carried her down the stairs. It took an hour. In the South Tower, Wells Crowther carried some people part of the way down. He also asked healthy people to help others who were hurt. Firefighters, police, and EMTs. Firefighters and medical workers, called EMTs or emergency medical technicians, rushed upstairs as office workers climbed down the stairs in the Twin Towers. Each firefighter carried 60 pounds of gear. Other firefighters fought smaller fires on the ground. EMTs treated injured people outside. The 2 airplanes each held 24,000 gallons of jet fuel. The crashes caused hot fires that weakened the tower's steel frames. The North Tower stood for about 100 minutes, and the South Tower stood for 60 minutes. Thousands of people escaped the towers. Finally, the tower's steel frames gave away and the buildings fell. The 343 firefighters inside were killed. 23 police officers were also killed. Later, WTC Building 7 and the hotel collapsed. Pentagon rescuers. The Pentagon has its own police and firefighters, but many nearby firefighters came to help. Soldiers dug tunnels under furniture and fallen walls so people could crawl out. One large man held up a ceiling for a while. Victor Correa, a lieutenant colonel in the Army, walked through smoke in a dark hallway. Over and over he yelled, "Listen to me! Follow my voice!" He led many people outdoors. Staff Sergeant Christopher Brayman, a Marine, heard a woman clapping. She could not shout and was badly burned. He rescued her. Land the airplanes. The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, sets the rules for non-military airplanes. After the first two crashes, the FAA stopped planes from taking off and told air traffic controllers to have all other planes land. Air traffic controllers talk to pilots during takeoffs and landings. The controllers have to be calm in emergencies. Now, they had to land nearly 4,000 planes at once. Only military planes were allowed to fly. No one knew if terrorists were aboard any more airliners. By about noon, all airliners had landed. Restaurants, stores, and hotels help. When the Twin Towers collapsed in New York City, the air was filled with smoke and dust. Thousands of people were still walking away. Restaurants, stores, and hotels opened their doors. People could go in for a drink of water. Usually, this was for customers only. Subways and trains stopped running. People had to walk home, sometimes long distances. Stores gave free running shoes to people who needed them. A fancy hotel set up beds and cots in its ballroom. The chef cooked lots of food. Rescue workers were welcome to eat and rest. That night, some people had to sleep on the streets. Hotels lent them pillows and blankets. Digging for survivors. People were still escaping to other parts of New York. Rescue workers were already digging for survivors at the Twin Towers. In New York and at the Pentagon, police and firefighters came from near and far. So did doctors, nurses, and EMTs. Construction workers brought heavy machines. Owners brought their search and rescue dogs. The dogs crawled into small spaces, walked on broken glass, and sniffed and listened for survivors. Spotlights allowed rescue workers to work all night. They found a few survivors. People make donations. Within 4 days, more than 250,000 people donated blood. Usually, in 4 days, only about 91,000 people do that. Injured people often need new blood to help them heal. In New York City, Robin Marandino and her family went to restaurants and supermarkets to ask for free hot food for rescuers. Soon, they had 1,500 pounds of meals that filled 5 vans. Gifts from everywhere. The New York City Fire Department lost 91 fire trucks, rescue trucks, and cars when the Twin Towers fell. People from Louisiana, Ohio, and Utah bought new fire trucks for the department. School children in Columbia, South Carolina, held a fundraiser and bought New York City a new fire truck. 2 companies that build fire trucks each donated a truck. Schools, clubs, and businesses across the United States raised money for those harmed by the attacks. Some money was used for educating children who lost relatives. Some money helped people who had to move out of damaged apartments. Some money was used for medical care. Sympathy and changes. Nations around the world expressed sympathy for the United States' losses. Today, we are all Americans, said a former Prime Minister of Israel. He meant that everyone shared in the sadness. People worked day and night to clean up the World Trade Center site. Trucks carried away broken steel and cement. They finished on May 30th, 2002, 3 months earlier than expected. A contest was held to choose a design for new buildings to replace the ones destroyed. Airports made many changes in how they checked passengers onto airliners. They wanted to make it impossible for terrorists to take over airplanes ever again. New buildings and memorials. More than 3,000 people died in the 4 attacks on September 11, 2001. More than 2,500 people survived with injuries. These people were from many states, the District of Columbia, as well as other nations. New buildings will be built where the Twin Towers stood in New York City, along with a memorial, a way to remember and honor a person or an event. The damaged part of the Pentagon was repaired in 11 months. The National Park Service plans to build a memorial where Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania. Everyone who helped during and after the attacks is a hero of 9/11.